We are live in Anchorage, Alaska, and you're not going to see this anywhere else. For the past 2 days, we've spent hours with the governor of Alaska, and our cameras have been rolling all the time. And so tonight you will see part one of our interview, because we see her at work and at home. And here is the governor. Governor, it must be fun to be back in your office here in Anchorage.
It's great. It's great. A lot of work to do, so it's good to be back.
What's on the agenda today?
Cabinet meeting this morning, and then working with our gas line team, ramping up production of what we have to do to start supplying the U.S. with more domestic sources of energy. That's always top of our agenda here in the state of Alaska, but working on that today.
All right, let me clarify some loose ends here. The close. What is the story on the close?
The clothes. When I arrived at the convention, there were clothes waiting for me and clothes being ordered for me and for the family, for 8 of us. And ever since then, those clothes, knowing that they didn't belong to me, many of them had been returned. Many of them were put in the belly of the airplane, and some of them were returned home with me. We boxed them all up, sent them back to the rightful owners, the Republican National Committee, and that's the story on the clothes.
Did you order the clothes?
Did not order the clothes, did not ask for the clothes. Would have been happy to have worn my own clothes from day one, but yeah, that turned into kind of an odd issue, an odd campaign issue as things were wrapping up there as to who ordered what and who demanded what. But no, I was happy to get to come home to my own closet and put my own clothes on again, which we had done, of course, through most of the campaign also. But the convention clothes were belonging to the RNC.
Do you know whose idea that was or how that even evolved?
Haven't really heard how all that evolved, and hadn't really pursued it until we started getting criticized for supposedly asking for all these clothes, my family and me, and still don't have all the answers. But it just, at this point, especially seems so irrelevant unless the criticism continues in regards to my family or me demanding anything. But it just seems like such an irrelevant issue when you consider what's going on in the world today, and how a new administration is being ushered in, and people being concerned about the direction of the nation and policies that will be adopted, and also at the same time being excited about this historic moment in our nation's history. Clothes just have seemed irrelevant.
I agree with you, they're irrelevant. She said the number was so horrific. I mean, $150,000 was a giant number, and it seemed, that all of a sudden you got hammered with it. And I was trying to figure out, is it fair, is it unfair, or, why is it that this became an issue? And I don't mean to harp on it, but why did this become an issue?
Well, that is a good question. Again, arriving at the convention, being told that along with staging and lighting and everything else was wardrobe for my family and me to wear during the convention, and just kind of going with the flow. Okay, that sounds fine. If that's the way that they do this, that's good. Wearing the clothes during that time. There's no way it could have been $150,000 worth of clothes, though. Not unless every jacket and pair of shoes were $10,000, $20,000. I don't see how it added up. But it was for 8 people, not just for myself. And my understanding is right off the bat, about 1/3 of the clothes had been returned because they just weren't going to work. Another 1/3 of the clothes that we were wearing all got returned to the RNC, and another 1/3 of the clothes, we never did see them, evidently. They were in the belly of the plane, and those got sent back also.
So you think you got hit unfairly with that issue, or was it a stupid issue? Or
I think that there was unfair criticism that maybe lingers today, that my family and I asked for anybody to pay for any of our clothes that the RNC had offered up. And receipts show, too, again, that the clothes and the stylists, they were all hired before we even were introduced in the convention. So, it had to have been part of an RNC plan. And I think, too, some of the puzzlement here is, I don't know if people are asking the Democrats how it worked for them, who did hair and makeup for the Democrat nominees, and were their clothes provided, and, what happened there. But certainly we've been asked a lot of questions about this.
One quick final question. So you never said, get me 6 Armani suits, or get me a certain stylist out of New York City, or anything like that? I mean, there was no demand from you or request from you?
No. And in fact, the criticism that, I took time out to run into Neiman Marcus or Saks. I don't think I've ever set foot in either one of those stores, and of course didn't know the New York stylists whom they had hired or anything else. They were really nice gals. They were wonderful people, and you know, it was I guess productive in a sense, in that they picked out some really nice clothes to borrow for a while there, but that was not anything that the Palin family would have chosen for ourselves. In fact, I'm much more comfortable in my own skin, in my own clothes, and you know, I guess it was just part of a strategy that perhaps, you know, in hindsight, looking back, if people had to do something over again, I think they would have been more than happy at this point to reverse some of that and let me go back to Alaska, pack my own bags, wear my own clothes on the trail. And that could have reflected, too, I think, more of who we are, our family, as Alaskans, you know, unpretentious, not trying to change anything about appearance or what we represent. And maybe some of that is has to do with the clothes.
One other criticism was this whole business about Africa, and I investigated it. I talked to someone who was in the room with you, whose name I can't reveal, who was there for all your preparation, talked to that person, grilled that person, cross-examined that person, said that Africa thing never happened, never happened. And I grilled the person.
Yeah.
Why did that get a life of its own?
I don't know, because I remember the discussion about Africa. My concern has been the atrocities there in Darfur and the relevance to me with that issue as we spoke about Africa and some of the countries there that were kind of the people succumbing to the dictators and the corruption of some collapsed governments on the continent. The relevance was Alaska's investment in Darfur with some of our permanent fund dollars. I wanted to make sure that that didn't happen anymore, so we discussed what was going on in Africa. And never, ever did I talk about, well, gee, is it a country or is it a continent? I just don't know about this issue. So I don't know how they took our one discussion on Africa and turned that into what they turned it into. I don't even know who did, though. You know, so it's hard to address it.
Well, I know someone was there. And like I said, it's like, you know, I grilled the person, you know, pretty heavily on 2 occasions, as recently as last night. And that person said, and that's not a Palin person, that's a McCain staff person, I will tell you that much, and said it never happened. But it certainly was you know, it was sort of a string of gossip that has emerged in the last week. And I'm thinking, you know, why would someone want to whack you like that?
I don't know, because I don't know that inside baseball stuff at that top echelon of the way campaigns are run. Why anybody would do that? It doesn't make any sense. It harms everybody to have false allegations like that. Along those same lines, of course, was the criticism that supposedly I didn't know who the participants in NAFTA were. I remember, again, having a discussion about NAFTA and how Alaska, again, being relevant to the discussion with the trade that we have with Canada, being our next door neighbors, how important it was that we continue NAFTA and having good relations with Mexico and with Canada, and wanting to know what Barack Obama meant by saying that he would want to perhaps unilaterally get in there and renegotiate NAFTA. Remember that discussion? But there was never a question about, well, who are the participants in NAFTA? So for my discussion there to be spun into something that it was not, and then being broadcast on national television, again, based on anonymous sources, that's been another puzzling thing to me.
Is there anything else that has been raised or said about you in the media, either during the convention, during the campaign, or since the campaign ended, that you think you need to address, that has been, an allegation about you?
Well, unfortunately, early on, there are a tremendous number of examples that we can give regarding my record and things that could have, should have been so easily corrected if the media would have taken one step further and investigated a little bit, and not just gone on some blogger probably sitting there in their parents' basement wearing their pajamas blogging some kind of gossip or a lie regarding, for instance, the discussion about who is Trig's real mom. Was it one of her daughters, or was she faking her pregnancy? And that was in mainstream media, the question that was asked, instead of just coming to me and setting the record straight. And then when we tried to correct that yeah, truly I am Trig's mother, for it to take days for it ever to have been corrected. That kind of right out of the chute was one of the oddities of this campaign and the messaging. And then two things that, again, so easily could have been corrected about my supposed attempts to censor and ban books when I was the mayor of Wasilla. And one of the examples that they gave was that media was just sure that one of the books I tried to ban was Harry Potter. Of course, it hadn't even been written when I was the mayor of Wasilla. So just issues like that just, you know, it was mind-boggling to consider what it was that we were going to be up against when you could see that something was written about, something was stated in the media. I knew the truth, and I had the record to prove otherwise, and yet it would either take too long to unring that bell that had just been rung, or there was no attempt at all to correct the record. That was pretty frustrating.